So let's take a song that has a melody, a really specific melody, something like Cole Porter's Hot House. Cole Porter's what is this thing called? Love. Sorry. So it has in a lot of Cole Porter's music, and we'll get to him. He's a Tin Pan Alley composer, but the melodies sound composed. So you can hear that melody has a structure to it, whereas if you take, and this is a composed melody, but it's a song by Tad Dameron, based on, what is this thing called? Love, and it's called Hot House. I'm not even playing the whole thing, but you can see that even though that's composed, it sort of has the feeling of being improvised. It's very kind of, it goes in a lot of different directions. So there's not as much structure to it. The structure comes from the harmony. But when we talk about bebop music, we'll get into that a little bit. So another main thing I want to talk about in terms of improvising, the idea of what is improvisation. So when people talk about theater improvisation, or any kind of, like, the idea of improvising is basically creating something from nothing. So and doing it spontaneously. I prefer to think of a lot of jazz as spontaneous composition. However, what you have to know about most jazz musicians is that in some ways, jazz performance is a lot more like stand-up comedy in that it has, like, think of your favorite comedians, and when you see a performance of them, it almost seems as though they're coming up with these ideas on the spot. Like somebody like Louis C.K. He likes to give the impression that he's coming up with these ideas off the top of his head, and that's kind of part of his performance practice. It's the same thing in jazz. There is a lot of spontaneity. However, there is a lot of pre-preparation. So just to counter the idea that jazz is completely improvised, I mean, it almost has people think that, oh, you're just sort of coming up with, you don't know, you have no idea what you're doing. There's a lot of reasons for that, a lot of sort of cultural misunderstandings for that, but there's a lot of preparation, and there's a lot of practice of small ideas that are used in a spontaneous fashion. For example, we'll take that same chord structure. I mean, even just knowing the chord structure, that's the foundation oftentimes of our improvisations. So we have a topic. It's not all free improvisation. So even just saying, like, okay, well, on this type of chord, I use this scale. So that's already a pre-understanding of a musical element. So so again, the idea is that many of those phrases I played before are not necessarily in that order. So it's spontaneous. It's spontaneous arrangement of certain ideas. It's very much like how I'm presenting this short video lecture to you. All of these words I've used before. Excuse me. Not necessarily in that order. So the word I like to use is extemporaneous. So extemporaneous means spontaneous but with pre-planning, and it's sort of the idea, it's the difference between reading off of reading a speech verbatim as opposed to having note cards with ideas or topics. So and then just speaking off the cuff or you know, I mean, in a way, the implication or the thought about improvisation many times is that, again, people don't know what they're doing. So that's kind of like how my infant son speaks. He doesn't know any English yet, so he's definitely improvising in that sense. So you'll have a lot of examples of all of these salient characteristics in the PowerPoint for this week, and there's a bunch of other things you can listen to using those salient characteristics of jazz. You'll have some examples to listen to where you're asked, is this jazz? Is this jazz? You know, and it doesn't mean, you know, I'm not trying to get into a thing of whether, you know, jazz is the greatest music ever, but it's for you to decide, like, does that example have the salient characteristics we're talking about? So there's also some stuff about a trumpet player named Nicholas Payton, and he talks about some contemporary thoughts about where the music is headed and where the music is now. And there's a great excerpt from The Cry of Jazz, which is a really cool film from 1959. So there's a bunch of stuff in here. Good luck with it, and welcome to the class. And hopefully I'll be able to get in one of these lectures every week, and hopefully it'll add to the class. And remember, you will have a quiz every week that I'll be posting Wednesday or Thursday of every week. So I don't think that the testing in this class is anything you should be worried about. I'm really more concerned about you developing a feel for this music. And thanks a lot. Good luck.